So, AK, in 2023, we've had a lot of amazing games released. Some of the greatest games of our generation, of all time, really. Well, I mean, I should really only say one of them because WarioWare Move It came out. We had one of the all-time cornerstones of American, Japanese, European, all over the world entertainment, worldwide entertainment for WarioWare, for video games, just in general. But that got me thinking about the whole series. There's so many WarioWare games. They're all so different.
Yeah.
And I know that you are a bit of a WarioWare aficionado. I love WarioWare. You are a true expert when it comes to the series. What's your opinion of this series here?
My opinion on WarioWare, wow. I would say, yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite Nintendo series, if you ask me that. And everyone loves WarioWare for, like, the wackiness of the games. And there's also just that, you know, the arcade-style gameplay of just trying to, like, the microgame formula. I just think after all these games, it's been, like, perfected to a level where all of these games I just have fun just going back to them, trying to get my high scores, and they just never get old for me, so there's that.
I definitely got really into the series with Smooth Moves specifically. Smooth Moves was my was my gateway drug. And then after that, I played a lot of weirdly enough WarioWare Snapped on DSiWare. That was a great time when I was not aware of what a great time was. And then there was also WarioWare DIY was big for me, and I played everything retroactively. There's probably like 2 games on this list I don't have as much experience with, but I still, I still know them well enough to discuss them here. But, we'll get to that when we get to that. I kind of want to go over the whole series because, WarioWare, you know what you're going to get with a WarioWare game for the most part. As in, you're going to get that micro game mayhem, as the back of the box would say. But I think, every entry is a little different. You're always going to have fun with a WarioWare, but every entry is a little different. So, I think, let's talk about what we think of every entry, and then we'll kind of make them, we'll kind of rank them, worst to best, I guess. The first game, WarioWare Mega Microgames, what do we think about that one? I personally think it laid the foundation. It's an excellent GBA game. One of the best GBA games. I wouldn't say it's the best WarioWare. I'd say it's like in the middle range of the series overall. Maybe like in the I wouldn't say lower because like there are a couple of stinkers in the list that we have just because we're including all kinds of everything. I think it's like middle of the road as far as WarioWare goes. What do you think of that first one?
Yeah, I do kind of agree. Like, of course, it's not a bad WarioWare, obviously. It's like, but like, it's the first one. It's kind of basic, well, but like, it's also kind of like a good thing for it. So all the micro games, it's very simple, right? It's just the D-pad and the A button. That's like the bare essentials of the formula, and in the first installment it just kind of perfected that. And even though it's not kind of like as gimmicky as the later games, I would say it's simple, it's straightforward, it's easy to understand, and a lot of people latched onto this concept when it first came out. And I think that's how this formula just got so popular. Just the first one was just so easy to understand and easy for people to get into.
And I think that's important for the micro games, having that easy to understand element, because as cool as Move It is, it definitely is more complicated, just in terms of like
yeah, we'll get to that.
I think it's awesome as like if you've already played Smooth Moves, because like then it feels like that natural evolution, But like if you were just jumping into it, like there's so many like what is a bacaw, like that just I don't know what to do here. But yeah, I think middle of the road. But then we followed it up with WarioWare Mega Party Games. And I think this game has value, but I think in the grand scheme of WarioWare, it's definitely like pretty low because it's literally just Mega Micro Games on GameCube. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so Mega Party Games, I don't have a lot of experience with. Well, I do own a copy of the game, but obviously I have not played a lot of multiplayer, and that's going to be like a thing for the future games as well. I've not played a lot of the multiplayer modes in WarioWare. But Mega Party Games, I definitely feel on its own, if we're just talking about that, it's definitely like on the lower tier because it literally
awful.
is. Yep,
it's awful.
Yeah, I know it's supposed to be like a companion piece to Mega Micro Games. Like, oh, if you own the GBA game, you can get the GameCube version and you can play multiplayer with your friends with all these additional modes. And to their credit, the modes are fine. I've seen like people play them online. I'm sure they're all a good time. I think it also kind of like assumes that your friends are also kind of into WarioWare, right? Like they know all the micro games inside and out, so you can like battle out in these additional side modes. And aside from that, the single player is just kind of playing each micro game one by one. There's no like framing device for all of it. It's just kind of, it throws you in the elevator, and then you just do all the micro games, and then once you're done, it's on to the next level. And yeah, definitely the GBA game's better in that aspect. Though I will say, one thing I actually did like about Mega Party games is that it had one mode where you basically have to do every single micro game in the game in one setting from beginning to end. And it kind of judges your score based on how many you got, like, right, versus how many you lost. And that has not come back in every other game in the series since. And I kind of want to see that being brought back, because it's just such a crazy idea. But doing every single micro game is kind of like the All Cup Tour in Mario Kart Double Dash. It's just like just a marathon I would like to see brought back.
I don't even think I have experience with that mode in particular. What I played in Mega Party games was like I feel like one of those little creeps that doesn't know the name specifically of a lot of these modes. It's like the balloon one, where it's just like, you're playing the micro game, and then people are pumping it. It got brought back in Get It Together. Then there's the e-reader one. There's the one where it's just like the other characters can block the screen. There's a lot of fun multiplayer modes and little ways to play the micro games in this game. But I do think, single player wise, this game is just awful. Just mostly like, it's a direct port of half of WarioWare Mega Micro games, and then the other half is just not there, which is strange to me.
So it turns out I forgot about something. So I said that like Mega Party games didn't really have like the framing device that the GBA original had, but actually they did have these full motion video cutscenes that were kind of like,
really?
Have you seen them?
I don't think so.
If you look them up on YouTube, they're kind of like, they're just these like, I feel like they had a negative budget while making these cutscenes. It was just, there's basically just PNGs being like slapped around, moved around, with weird sound effects. It just feels like a fever dream while you're watching these. And this is like, you could make an argument that that's like these are wackiest cutscenes to ever come from WarioWare.
Where were these?
If you think, it's just like very generic like 3D models, the most basic like shapes mashed together, and it's just like a mismatch of like voice lines from the GBA games with like no plot connecting them together. There's something to be seen. Like, if you haven't seen them, you should go look them up.
That is pretty indicative of Mega Party games in general. It very much is like a very, very rushed variant of Mega Micro games. I believe that's how it was commissioned. I think Iwata said, like, I want a version on GameCube for this that's multiplayer. And they were like, okay, and it also needs to come out
they want it
like
as soon
this
as
year.
possible, don't they?
It's fun. Like, it's a fun multiplayer game. But it's not, like, it repurposes a good chunk of Mega Micro games, but if you play it, you didn't actually play Mega Micro games, in my opinion. It's a really weird game, and it's really strange to me. If I look back at like reviews at the time, like something like the Mario parties on GameCube were getting blasted at the time. They were just like, God, this is just a bunch of like, this is the same thing over and over again. And then WarioWare Mega Party games, they're like, it's okay. And I'm like, it's the same thing as the GBA game, but less. But it's just like, I don't know. It's a weird game. But after that, we have WarioWare Twisted on the GBA. I think this was generally considered back in the day to be like the best WarioWare. What do you think of this one? Because while I played this one, this is one of the, I'd say, two that I have the least experience with. I do own it, but what do you think of Twisted?
So Twisted actually is like how I actually found out about WarioWare in the first place, even though it's actually not the first game I played. My first exposure to WarioWare, as far as I can remember, is kind of like, was on YouTube minding my own business, and I see like this gameplay clip of Twisted, which is a clip of like 9-volt Nintendo micro games. And I was just like, wait, no, you can play Nintendo games like that just like in 5-second chunks? What is this? It's like Super Mario Brothers is all like weird and twisty. It's like so I just like got into like WarioWare from that. But like Twisted is admittedly a hard game to like access nowadays. It's never been like legally re-released. I played other games in the series first, and I got into Twisted only like relatively recently, getting a cartridge of that game. After playing around, I would not say it's actually my favorite WarioWare. I wouldn't say that. It is definitely a step up from Mega Micro games with the cartridge, the gyroscope. Is definitely a creative idea that they used quite a bit. Like, they used it to full potential, but I think it definitely has more of a learning curve than the original GBA game. Like, some of these are definitely, like, by the time you get to like the higher speed, higher difficulties, it's definitely hard to keep track of everything, where you're trying to like twist your system all around, trying to keep focus on the screen, and that gives it like a more higher bit of difficulty, and some people might enjoy that, but for me, I think it's like, it kind of like diminishes the replayability of it, because I can definitely, every time I play through the shuffle mode in Twisted, I can never get as high of a score as I did in the other games.
Yeah, well, where would you say it go? You would probably say like it would go like probably below Mega Microgames at this point, but above like Mega Party.
I would actually kind of put Twisted like slightly above. Yeah, I would say put a tier above Mega Microgames. It could be great actually, because actually what I do like about Twisted is that I believe it actually had the most microgames in the series before Gold came out. So yeah, and in addition to that, there are like tons of extra doohickeys and like in the side modes, so you can unlock a whole bunch of different toys that use the gyroscope just to like mess around. That's like one of my favorite things about the WarioWare games that they have barely brought back nowadays. I think the last time they had these was in Gold, and Get It Together and Move It didn't really have them, but I just loved having all these souvenirs just to mess around with, and all these mini games.
Yeah.
Just to like and in Twisted they definitely had some really cool mini games in the sets.
I think this is where like pretty much WarioWare like took the new form of like let's just do like we like it's like one of the most experimental Nintendo series when it comes to like using different hardware like that, because before that, I mean, like with Mega Microgames and Mega Party games, yeah, like you were saying, like it was a very simple game, and while Twisted might be not as like accessible, I feel like what it lacks in accessibility it makes up for in terms of just uniqueness, especially at the time. Well, it may not be like the best WarioWare like at this point. I think, yeah, like I feel like it makes sense to be above the original. But after that, we got Touched. We got the two T games. We got Twisted and Touched.
Yeah, Twisted and Touched came out like very close to each other. I think their development actually overlapped a bit, and in some regions they actually released Touched first before Twisted.
It's a little wacky. It's a little interesting. I've played a decent amount of WarioWare Touched, but I gotta be honest, like this game just didn't really stick with me that much. So I really gotta like look back at this. Yeah, it didn't really grab me a ton. What do you think of WarioWare Touched? This was the other second game that I didn't have like a ton of experience with.
I would say personally, I think most of the YouTube comments might not agree with this, but like between Twisted and Touch, I actually kind of prefer Touched more. So it's actually one of the earliest Wario games I've tried. But I would say, like, of course, it's a perfect fit for the DS, right?
Yeah.
Like the touchscreen. Of course, even like the dev team, once they had the DS, they were like, we gotta make a WarioWare game for this immediately, even though we're still working on Twisted. We gotta make another one for the DS now. But I just think, like, yeah, the DS touchscreen is, like, a perfect fit for WarioWare, and, like, compared to Twisted, I would say it is definitely, Touch is definitely more accessible. And, like, it makes more sense, right? You got the touchscreen, you got the pen. I would want to say, like, a lot of microgames are also more intuitive than in Twisted. You just naturally know what to, like, press or like spin or twist or whatever to like win the microgames, and I think that what makes it like as accessible as kind of the GBA original in that regard.
Yeah, and when I say like it didn't grab me, it's more so like I don't have a ton of experience with this, and I think I played it for like 30 minutes and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I'll get back to this later, and it's been about 3 years. If you play a WarioWare game outside of its like era it released, especially during this era where like they were very experimental and you know, like stuff like touchscreen support was brand new, you know, a lot of the WarioWare games really do kind of feel like oh, you know, this is cool, this is kind of fun, but they don't really stick with you as much if you didn't play it like during that like era. So I think that's probably why. But where would you say it kind of lies compared to Twisted and Mega Microgames?
I'd personally put it in the great game tier. I just think it still holds up today. The novelty factor is definitely stronger back then, especially when the DS was like a newfangled thing, right? This was released in 2004. I forgot if it was a launch title for the DS. It might actually have been. Even now, when we have like all these touchscreens around us nowadays, I still think like these mini games still hold up well, and I would like want them to actually port this game to smartphones. I know that would never happen, but that would be kind of cool.
It's the perfect game for mobile.
Yeah, just make a WarioWare for smartphones, Nintendo. Yeah. That's just
Instead they did Dr. Mario World, and I don't even think that counted as Dr. Mario, man. That was like that was something else. That was something foul. They really leaned into WarioWare during this era. Specifically, I mean, like when you look at the hardware that they had, I mean, they really needed something to show off like all the wacky ideas you can do with this stuff. Which brings us to WarioWare Smooth Moves, potentially the best. I think it is actually the best right now.
Yeah. On my channel, I made a video on this. just because at the time I thought like lots of people are talking about how Twisted is the best game. I want to say it's actually Smooth Moves.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's done something that has like barely, like before Move It, has not been really replicated by any other WarioWare game. It's just such a perfect fit as well for the Wii. Like,
yeah.
I can't feel like a broken record here, but especially with this being like the franchise's leap to 3D, so to speak, and like the first like mainline console WarioWare game. Mega Party Games doesn't really count. Even with a jump to like home consoles and 3D, it still has that, you know, WarioWare charm to it, especially with how primitive it looks as an early Wii game. It has like that unique style that I don't think a lot of Wii games have like replicated ever since.
I think it used the limitations of the Wii to its advantage, because WarioWare always has like the vibe of Wario and his friends made all of these games. Some of them look pretty good. Others look like absolute ass. It worked beautifully on the Wii. The Wii excelled at like stylistic kind of games like this because, you know, it didn't have the power to compete with the HD consoles at the time. So it's just like, I love that you have WarioWare come out so close to launch. It just doesn't care. You just have like all these random, a couple of these 3D games that genuinely look like tech demos done in like a college, and it's so fun, it's so quirky. You know, you go from 3D, 2D, like pixel art style, regular hand, like, oh, there's like hand-drawn styles, like all different kinds, and it's just like you're saying, like they made that transition to 3D, but also just in general, like this was the first time the microgames themselves were able to go beyond like a pixelated handheld screen. Pretty much, you have all this different variety in terms of how the microgames looked, in addition to how they are controlled, like something that like Twisted couldn't do. Like, you are able to do so much random stuff in this game, and it doesn't really bog it down. You'd think like having to show like, oh, like you do this pose and stuff would slow down the microgames. Like, no, not really. Like, but like you have this entire world map pretty much of just all this stuff to do, and as a kid it was genuinely like, oh my god, there's so much stuff in this game. Of course, now I know pretty much every WarioWare game has about 2 hours of content, but it was very cool back in the day, and playing it now, I have a bunch of respect for this game. This is one of the Wii's all-time greats.
It's actually like, yeah, I feel like it's actually hold up really well as an early Wii game. Like, you'd think, I know some people might say like, oh, the motion controls are jank now, sometimes it doesn't work properly, but like most of the time, I feel like in this game, like 90% of the time when I do the motion controls, they do exactly what I want them to do. Like, the forms are really simple, right? It's just hold the Wii remote as like an umbrella, tug of war, hold them in front of you like an elephant. Most of the time, there's only like really 2 or 3 microgames I can specifically name where like the motion controls have not really like been as responsive as I want them to be. They're literally like 5% of the entire package, and like most of the time I just like really love how creative some of these forms are.
Can I predict what the games that don't work very well is? There's the boss fight. There's the boss fight at the end of like Penny's portion, where like you're pretty much going up against, like, you're doing like a sword fight. I like, there are so many times where like that would just not work for me. Like, it would take me like 4 attempts.
That's not one of them for me.
Damn. Well, now I just feel incompetent.
No, the ones I had trouble with. One of them is actually, I think it was like the Ultra Hand microgame in 9-volt stage. I could never actually like swing because I was holding it in front of me. I would never like miss it, and would always like delay the hit. And there was another specific one. You have to like straighten a stack of papers, and also that never worked for me.
Yeah.
I think like that's basically one of the 2 micro games that I specifically had trouble with. But otherwise, the straightforwardness of the motion controls like don't really hinder you during the higher speeds as well, I think.
Before we move on to the next one, I have one more micro game I had a problem with. It's always the boss fights. It's like okay, I will say the sword fight one I genuinely had problems with as a kid. I remember genuinely not having a good time. I cried at this game, and because I couldn't get it to work right. There is, let's see, at the end of a Dribble and Spitz's stage, the boss fight.
Oh, the
running around. Right. I don't even know how to describe this one, man. just a bunch of BS going on.
Style, and you're like shooting balls. Yeah,
it's just a bunch of trash going on. That one I had some problems with. But
I think that one like sometimes required you to like jump and crouch while doing like the elephant, and I've never actually done those actions like legitimately. I will always just cheese it just by swinging the remote up and down, and that will always work.
Yeah, those are the main two I remember having problems with, but those don't equate to a game that itself is a problem. The next one here, WarioWare Snapped on DSiWare.
Oh boy.
As a kid, I loved this one, more so as like a novelty. I remember playing this at restaurants. Like when we were waiting for food and stuff, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll play my DS and I'll play WarioWare. I'd just be moving my hands around and stuff. That was great memories.
Did it work as well for you, or as like I've seen most people say?
If I look back to when I was a kid when this released, which I would be like 11 or 12 or something, I remember it working fine enough. But now when I play it, no, it doesn't work very well. It might be because like maybe back in the day, like I just knew how to control the game better, or maybe the lighting conditions of every single time I played as a kid were spot on. But now playing it, like this game is a slog to go through, and I don't think you can even consider it to be WarioWare. I don't think these are like the games take 5 minutes apiece pretty much. That's an exaggeration, but it's also slow.
This is one of the games that I don't have a lot of experience with. I have played it on the system itself, but I didn't play it when it launched because I didn't have a DSi back then.
What's considered a lot of experience with Snapped? I feel like you've experienced the whole game.
Every time I've tried it, like I don't have like the most ideal conditions to actually try it. So every time I play, it's like, okay, I gotta set up my face first, and then I do 5 minutes setting that up. All right, I've set it up, and then it starts the microgames, and then the first microgame, I gotta set it up again, line up the hands and my face, and then wait for a few more minutes, fill over, and then do the microgame, and sometimes it doesn't even register my movement. So yeah, no. This is definitely, you said earlier how like smooth moves art style makes it look like a tech demo. No, this is literally the WarioWare tech demo, I would say. This is definitely more than that.
To some extent, it's a little impressive because like this was around the time of like the Xbox 360 Connect and all of that, and to some extent this does similar things to that, but on a way lower level. And it's in your pocket. You can bring it on the go, which is, that's something.
True. I want to say this is actually more of a tool to like. You know how like once you finish all the microgames in the end, it gives you like an image slideshow of just you doing the stupid poses while you're playing the microgames. Yeah, I feel like that's like the whole punchline of the game. It's just you show your friends Snap, let them play the game, and then afterwards it's just like, oh, look how stupid you look playing these games, right? It's just
and there's only like 20 microgames, and some of them even are very similar to each other.
Yeah, I barely remember what the microgames are in this game at all.
I think there's one where you like kiss somebody or something, and like there's like probably one where like you're cleaning something. I don't know. I mean, like I thought it was cool back in the day.
Most generic stuff.
I thought it was cool back in the day, but only as a tech demo. It's cool because, like, DSiWare barely had anything going for it. Like, there was not a lot going on there. Most of the time, it was, like, cut-up versions of pre-existing DS games. Like, you would have, like, Clubhouse Games Express and Brain Age Express, all of that. So to have, like, this fully original WarioWare game was somewhat compelling. I mean, it was compelling, but then you actually play it and it's like, oh, there's just not much going on there. I think this is below Mega Party games. I'd rather play Mega Party games.
I would say yes. I honestly, it's probably universally we can agree it's the lowest tier.
Yeah.
I do want to say that the one good thing that it gave us is that online clip of Satoru Iwata actually playing the game. That was like even he spent like a few seconds just trying to like set up the microphone, trying to get his hands in the right places. So I guess that's
God. I just feel like when stuff takes that long to do, it's just like it takes so long to set up, but it takes so long to set up WarioWare. WarioWare!
I appreciate all the quirky camera-related DSiWare stuff, like Photo Dojo, Look Sleaze lineup. That one also did some cool things with the camera, and you know, Snap, it's an ambitious concept. I'm glad they made it. It just didn't really work out with the tech at the time.
The thing with Photo Dojo and Luxie's lineup is that they don't advertise themselves as fast-paced microgame mayhem, and WarioWare Snapped is supposed to be fast-paced microgame mayhem, and it isn't that, honestly. But let's talk about some other DSiWare games, because I wanted to include everything in the WarioWare series. Where does Bird and Beans and Paper Airplane Chase land on this list?
Bird and Beans really is just like a straight port of Pyoro from the GBA game, isn't it? Both the original and the sequel. What are actually your thoughts on the Pyoro games?
They're fine. I mean, like it's a fun tradition in WarioWare. I think it's like a cute thing to be there. I mean, in Game & Wario, they have like a Game & Watch version of that game, and it genuinely does feel like at its heart, it has a lot of that Game & Watch energy, which is fun. I'll hear, like, if people talk about Game & Watch these days, they're like, oh, I don't want to play that, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, I don't think they've actually sat down and played, like, a Game & Watch game. I'm not saying they're amazing, but when you play, like, a Game & Watch game, like, you get kind of that genuine, pure, kind of high-score chasing fun. Very simple, engaging fun. And I think Pyoro really encapsulates that. I think it's a cute little mini game.
It's a great pick up and play game, yeah. It's so simple, but it just works.
I'd still probably put it below Mega Party games, but I think it's better than Snapped in the grand scheme of things. I mean, like, would you consider this to be better than Mega Party games as a whole? Where would you put comparing Bird and Beans to this?
I don't mind it. Like, I could put it. I feel like we could put it in the same tier, but then I wouldn't think of calling that tier just like awful games. They're like, they're there. They exist. So I would say, like, yep, it's okay. It's an okay game in the series. I would say that tier is basically what I think that.
Yeah, but where does Paper Airplane Chase compare? I don't think Paper Airplane Chase is as good as Bird and Beans Pyoro. It's still fine, you know. And I think the DSi release is a bit more in depth.
Yeah, they added like a 2-player like competition thing, right? And it also uses like both the screens of the DS, and I think that's actually kind of a good fit for that game. But aside from that, I think it's Paper Airplane Chase. It's a more like high skill stealing game than Pyoro, I would say.
I just like call it like kind of like analyzing Paper Airplane Chase and Bird and Beans like this. Just like I think it's more of a high skill stealing game. I feel like they're kind of interchangeable. You can I feel like they're kind of like lesser than Mega Party games just because of what they are. I mean, you know, kind of in the same realm as Mega Party games.
Yeah, in terms of like objectively content, right?
In the same realm as Mega Party games, because like they're all kind of like repurposing old content. But I'd say those are better options than Snapped. But I think Mega Party games objectively is still like, you know, it's a full, maybe not a full WarioWare game. I'd probably put Bird and Beans above Paper Airplane Chase. I mean, they're kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, Bird and Beans is definitely, if I had to like pick one of those to replay right now, I would definitely pick a Bird and Beans, I would say. Yeah.
Next up, I have a lot of experience with this one back in the day. This is WarioWare DIY.
Oh yeah.
This is simultaneously one of the best WarioWare games, but then is like, whatever, if you actually just play it as a WarioWare game, probably not one of the best WarioWare games just because of like the simplicity of the single player content, because they all have to work within. But when you look at it on the whole, it's probably one of the best game creation tools of all time.
Oh yeah.
I loved this game. This was so amazing.
Me too, dude. Like this is like one of the few game creation type games that I actually ever got into. Like, not even Game Builder Garage got me this into.
Game Builder Garage ain't the same.
Making my own stuff.
That's a travesty compared to this one.
Objectively, DIY should have like less options than something like Game Builder Garage, but like I just love how simple and intuitive it is. Like, a lot of people would say like they're trying to like strike a balance between making, like, you know, whenever some people come out with, you know, games that let you make your own creations, you gotta strike a balance between easy to approach, like easy accessibility, versus like how much you can actually do within the game. And I think DIY strikes that balance beautifully.
I think even the concept of the game is perfect, because it's like, you know, WarioWare is like, yeah, Wario's making his own games. Wario and the crew are making their own games. And if you're trying to come up with a good example of like, okay, you make your own games, but it's not super overwhelming, anybody can do it, what's better than making 5-second long games, you know? Like, oh, just make a quick little thing.
Yeah.
Everything about this game is a perfect idea, and it's executed pretty much damn near perfectly. I will say, like, it's hard for me to, like, pick it up and play it again, because it's just, like, I just don't really have that drive to, like, make a micro game in there anymore. Or, like, there's a bit about it that's, like, you know, it's been years, so it would be kind of hard for me to jump back in without going through the tutorials again and everything. But that's just how I feel about it right now. But that's not supposed to, like, take away from, like, how genuinely good this game is.
I've only, like, touched it, like, a few times recently, but definitely back then when I was, like, just having like the craziest, it's like, oh, I just want to make a game about doing this stupid thing, and I can just easily make it because, you know, it's just a micro game, right? It's easy to program and make. And even now, I occasionally revisit it, even though I haven't really made a lot of games as before. Just like on that off chance, very rarely when I have this weird inspiration, it's like, oh, I want to make a game that's just like featuring this modern game that just recently released. I want to try if I can recreate it. I want to try recreating it in WarioWare DIY.
It's such a in-depth game creation, and like it's not even that. You can do music. You can do comics. Yeah. It's so much. It's so cool.
Yeah, and you can like share with other people. I don't know. I've never like the one aspect of this game I haven't really used is the online.
I didn't really have Wi-Fi back when I had this game, so I didn't really have a chance to use it, unfortunately. And I wish I did, because there were so many cool things. The fact that they had like other developers make their own games for this. Whenever I'd go to like family events and I'd see like my cousins or something, I'll be like, what game do you want me to make? And I can make it in like 30 minutes flat. It was awesome. I could just do whatever with this game. But like I said, like as a WarioWare game, if we play it like as a single player experience, it's fine. Like if you want to sit down and play this as a genuine WarioWare game,
yeah.
I mean, it is entirely about the game creation thing, so it's kind of hard to compare it to a couple of these. And the games included, like, are definitely way more simple than something like a WarioWare Touch.
Yeah.
Just because, like, it's very much just tap, 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 you know?
It is simple in that way, but, like, what's also fun, I want to say, is that after you play through all the single-player games that they included, all the micro games that they included, you can actually go and actually open them in the editor to see how they actually made these games. And usually, even if these mini games have like simple controls, you can actually see that they have a lot of like little hidden tricks, programming tricks that they use to make these micro games look the way they do. And it's like, how do they even do that? It's like sorcery, right? And I just like how you can just learn from these micro games and what they do and use them as inspiration for your own stuff. Even edit them directly if you want. And I always thought it was a cool feature.
There's a bit of that WarioWare energy that kind of translated over to Mario Maker, but still, like, it's not, you know, it's not the same, because this is genuinely, it's full-blown Tool. And Game Builder Garage just ain't the same, man. It's like, that thing is, like, dead quiet when you're making it. It's creepy. And it's just, like, yeah, you can do more with it technically. But WarioWare DIY is like, I think this is like a genuinely perfect way to introduce somebody to game development, because like you have all these elements that are a part of like what it's like to program or design a game, but it's represented in such a simple and easy to understand manner. Everything just comes together for this. It's tricky. Is this better than Smooth Moves? Because we've been singing its praises here. Like it may be a better package overall, but I'm not sure. I feel like as a WarioWare experience, this is much more of like, and it's mainline, but it's also, it feels more like a different, it's a different thing, you know?
Yeah, it's a completely different thing, I was going to say, yeah. But it's definitely, I think it definitely deserves a space on the top tier. Only thing I would miss from it is just like being able to share your creations online, because I just totally missed out on that. And you know, the DS Wi-Fi service kind of died early. This game really could have used a modern re-release, or like a modern version where you could just share the games easily. I know with modern Nintendo, they will probably make it not super convenient for people to share their own microgames, but that's just like a tapped idea. Even now, like there's fan communities sharing their own like microgames online through like dumping the save datas and all that, and like just see that there's like just still a community of people making stuff in this game is just really cool to see.
Well, I will tell you this, there is a way that I preserved my DIY Microgames back in the day because I did sell my copy at some point. So I was like, oh man, I lost all my games. But I did not. Because I had the WiiWare companion title, WarioWare DIY Showcase, and I can go on that right now, and I see all the games I made. It is pretty wild. DIY Showcase is a little tricky. It's in terms of like a companion title, like how it's like, okay, DIY has DIY Showcase, and then we also have like something like Mega Microgames and Mega Party Games. I think this is a much more substantial like companion title than Mega Party Games was to Microgames. Like you like for a WiiWare game, like you got a full blown WarioWare experience. Like maybe not full blown, but way better than WarioWare Snapped. You got full blown cutscenes in the style of like WarioWare Smooth Moves, and you can play all these games. Now, of course, like on Wii, they're very simple. You know, it's pointing and clicking with the Wii remote. But I just find it to be really cool that they did this. You know, a way to play your microgames on the big screen, and also just as a WiiWare download, you know, like it's a substantial enough game. Yeah, it's a bit tricky to figure out where this lies. What are your thoughts on Showcase?
Yeah, I pretty much basically agree with you. Like, Showcase is like the perfect companion piece to DIY. Playing your games on the big screen, it's definitely a different experience, but like, I really enjoy just having this option to be able to do so, right? And of course, it comes with its own micro games that you can even import back to the DS version if you want. But definitely a way better value than Snapped in terms of like DSiWare and WiiWare, but
I think it's right above Mega Party Games or maybe below Party Games. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's above Party Games in that aspect.
Mega Party Games may be having some more company here because I mean, like, we might. I don't know what your thoughts are on Game & Wario, but it's Game & Wario. It's a wacky experience on Wii U. As the box art says, it's gamepad pandemonium. It has mini games and some micro games. There are micro games in the experience. And it has the best version of Pictionary I have ever played. This is a tricky one because I like elements of Game & Wario. I mean, I'd say I love elements of Game & Wario. I wouldn't say I love Game & Wario as a whole, though.
Game & Wario is also another one of those games that I don't have a lot of experience with. I've played it, obviously, but only a bit of the single-player stuff. From what I can tell, it definitely is generally actually a nice little, you know, in terms of, like, Wii U games that try to showcase the gamepad. I think Game & Wario actually does a decent job at that. Like, it's kind of like the Nintendo Land of Wario. But in terms of, like, WarioWare, it's really just kind of... It's definitely more of a spin-off. It's definitely a WarioWare in spirit, aside from, like, the gamer stuff, the microgame stuff. Aside from that, I think it's an okay game.
It does enough to give you kind of a WarioWare-esque game. And there are elements of it that I think are really good. Like, you got, you know, the gamer minigame is, like, obviously kind of a big standout. But at that point, it's pretty much like, it's... It's a standout because it's still just basic WarioWare. It's kind of like what I wish Game & Wario was at the end of the day. And a lot of the mini games are very much like they genuinely are mini games. It's something like Ashley's mini game where, you know, you're just kind of going around. I mean, like, it's fine enough, you know. It's kind of it's fine in the sense of like how like Paper Airplane Chase or Bird and Beans are, where it's like, yeah, you can have some fun with this. But, you know, as a whole, you know, it's not what I want out of WarioWare, but it's like, it's fine. It's like a 6 out of 10 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where do you think it should go, though? I mean, like, would you rather play Game & Wario or Mega Party Games, you know?
At this point, I would definitely put it over Mega Party Games.
Probably above WarioWare DIY Showcase. I think it has, like, greater pros than... I don't know. I'm probably contradicting myself somewhere. I don't know what I'm saying. But yeah, I think Game & Wario is like, it's fine, but like there are elements of it that are just so lame, but then it does like some of the best things in the whole series at the same time. And it's also not really a WarioWare game, but it has all the elements of one that are like, all the cutscenes play out like that. It acts like it's a full-blown WarioWare game, even though it's not. It's a weird time. And whatever.
Yeah, it's a weird time to be a WarioWare fan.
Bit of a lull.
Around when Game & Wario came out, even though I did not have a Wii U at that time, I just remember thinking, like, Man, I know I like DIY. I really love DIY, but that technically wasn't really like a mainline WarioWare game, and the last time we really got one of those was Smooth Moves. So it's been like many years. I'm like, just have like the next game be just like a spin-off of like Microgames just being tucked into a corner in its own little mode. It's just like, it just makes me really want a regular WarioWare game afterwards.
I wonder why they did it that way, because maybe it's because just like the two screens of the Wii U, like they just kind of felt like would be a little too overstimulating for like super fast-paced microgames. Maybe I don't know, because like, you know, even when they had microgames in the in-game in Wario, like they were relegated to the gamepad, like a single screen.
It was not even like touch-based microgames. It was just like regular button-based microgames. Like they didn't even do like a touch thing with those.
I feel like for the 3DS they were worried about, maybe, I don't know, and this is just me speculating as why it took so long for WarioWare to come to any of these platforms, or like WarioWare just didn't really happen on Wii U outside of the spin-off. But like maybe they thought like the 3D screen would also be a little too like with the fast pace, it wouldn't work very well with what they wanted to do. I don't know, because when they did get a 3DS game, it was completely in 2D, and it was like one of the last 3DS games. But this might be one of the best WarioWare games. It's WarioWare Gold. I love this game. This game is phenomenal.
A WarioWare game on the 3DS has kind of been like on my wish list ever since the 3DS came out. Gold wasn't really what I wanted back then. All I wanted at that time, I just was like, I want a WarioWare game in 3D. Imagine how cool that would look on the 3DS, right? But like, I think what we got, it's probably better than what I would have wanted back then. Yeah, WarioWare Gold is definitely a very accessible entry into the series. Like, it's literally just like a best of collection of all of the handheld stuff, and even like has a bit of a Smooth Moves style gameplay thrown into the mix as well. Some of the Smooth Moves micro games actually returned for that, but yeah, it's kind of like the best of collection, similar to how Rhythm Heaven Megamix happened around the same time and was kind of also a similar thing for Rhythm Heaven. It was kind of a great thing.
Even though it doesn't utilize the 3D, I think at the very least, like, it does utilize like everything else about the 3DS, which I think makes it made the 3DS kind of the perfect platform for this all-in-one best of collection, because you have, you know, the touchscreen stuff, you have the button stuff, and then you have the gyroscope stuff, or the motion control stuff, and it includes like everything from the series up to this point, which is something you couldn't really do on the other platforms. I mean, like, you can do it on Switch, but I think it would be a lot more awkward. You couldn't play it on the TV, blah, blah, blah. You know, you can't do the touchscreen stuff. I do think, to some extent, like, even though they didn't utilize the system's main gimmick, they utilized every single one of their other gimmicks. My biggest issue with, like, a lot of WarioWare games is just how I just wish there was a little bit more, because, like, you know, it's about 2 hours of single player, but then, you know, you can keep going back and get a high score. But I always kind of feel like, oh man, there's just like a little bit more that's missing to make this like the perfect, like, oh, chef's kiss. But then like WarioWare Gold, I feel like reaches that bar, because there's 300 microgames in this thing, and they have like all the characters and like all this stuff. They have the gamer mini game from Game & Wario. They have the cutscene dubbing tool, and for some reason they decided to add a bunch of voice acting. That was weird.
Yeah, it was a little weird at first, but then like just having like Charles Martinet having time of his life doing full voice acting for Wario. It's just like a joy to see, right? And all of these like fun little cutscenes. I just thought like they added lots of charm to the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it's something where like initially it's kind of like, wow, this is weird, but like I'm not complaining about it. It's more so like I just never expected WarioWare to take that leap, you know, to be like, oh yeah, they're gonna have full-blown voice-acted cutscenes that are more than just grunts or just like, they have more dialogue in this game than they ever had written in the previous games, like how they would have like text boxes or something. Like, I'm sure if you combine all the text boxes from previous games, like, this game has more voice dialogue than all of that combined. I don't even think like it matters that much that like, oh, like it's a bunch of like older micro games. Like, I don't know, in the moment, like, it doesn't really matter. You're just having a good time.
Yeah, as you said, the new modes that they added to this game, of course, they brought back, like, the gamer mode from Game & Wario. You have the Wario Watch mode from Twisted, for those who like that mode. But there's also, like, these new modes, and, like, cruise controls is fine. There's, like, Wario Interrupts, which is kind of, like, basically an expanded version where you have to, like, where you're being distracted while you're playing the micro games. And also, what I would arguably say is like the best mode to ever grace a WarioWare game, which is a split screen, the one where basically you have to play Microgames non-stop on the top and bottom screens, and like it's just like a perfect fit for WarioWare on a DS.
Now, where does it go though? Would you say it's better than DIY, better than Smooth Moves, better than Touch? Where does WarioWare Gold go?
Gold and Smooth Moves, they're kind of like covering different bases, but I feel like if you ask me to rank them, I would definitely put it Gold on the very top.
Whoa.
Like, it's definitely the perfect accessible WarioWare game for anyone to get into if you just want to see what the whole series is all about. You know, it's straight, the controls are straightforward, it has all of the handheld gimmicks, and you know, it's just kind of the perfect 3DS swan song, I would say, for the end of the system's life. It's kind of like I think this was the last original like 3DS game Nintendo made for it. It was not like a remake of something existing, right?
Yeah, that is true. I think yeah, I'm not gonna fight you on that. I think Smooth Moves is, I mean, like, you know, because it was all brand new stuff, it does have some merit to it there. But when it comes to like what I think is the perfect like moment for this series, and like how many new microgames are here, that's the question. I feel like there's probably about like 50 maybe.
So there are 300 microgames in Gold, and 54 of which are new to the series.
I feel like that's respectable enough to be like, it's not like, oh, it's just repurposing content, you know, like, or just to kind of like relegate it to like that.
Even the microgames that they brought back from the other games, they're all like updated in some form or fashion. Like stuff from DIY gets referenced in this, and even like stuff from Smooth Moves gets brought back with different control schemes and stuff. So.
Yeah, so it doesn't really feel like, oh, it's just old content, you know, like that yeah. Like WarioWare Gold never really felt like that. So and it, like when you look at the stats, like 250 microgames brought back, 50 are brand new. I don't really think I don't really think an argument exists where it's like, oh, but it's just old stuff, and Smooth Moves is all new, so like that was that belongs on top. I feel like Gold belongs on top.
Yeah, I never felt like, you know, oh, I only played like this many new microgames and the rest are just old stuff. But no, I just, you know, when you mix them all together, I just have a blast playing through them all.
What we should probably talk about next is something that, I mean, I'm questioning where this lies, you know? I like this game, but I don't know where it lies in the grand scheme of the series. It's WarioWare Get It Together. You know, it really took a big step back for voice acting. It's strange. I was just like, they didn't have as much in this game. But the gameplay, I think this game is really commendable with what it does. Yeah. It's really, really cool. I think the idea, you know, it actually brings together a lot of like what WarioWare is well known for, and that, you know, that's the characters. But the characters never played a vital role in the gameplay, really much at all. It was kind of just like, you know, like, oh man, you know, like this is their set of microgames. But now it's genuinely like, hey, like let's focus on these characters and let's have you play as them, and they all play a little differently, and it makes the microgames all very different. That's really cool, and the microgames can be really, really cool, but I feel like they genuinely like reach the maximum potential of what they could do with this gameplay. I feel like the microgames in this game are all really, really cool, but I didn't really feel there was as much of like a variety as like previous games. They kind of felt a little more samey compared to other ones. I don't know. What do you think about Get It Together?
I would say it's definitely it's a unique take on the series. I would say that. I do enjoy actually the aspect of just having like all these different playable characters. Like, even though the microgame variety, as you said, it's definitely lesser than the previous games. Like, you can probably count multiple microgames just as consists of, you know, you have to go from point A to point B as this character. But like having all of these different characters with different movement options, it definitely adds a challenge, because of course, in addition to having random microgames thrown at you, you might also have, you know, random characters thrown at you. Even though you can pick your own squad before you start a stage or something, but you can also do like everything gets mixed up. You can do you can get hit with any microgame with any character, and you gotta figure out immediately how that character works or benefits in that in which microgame you play. So yeah, I would say this is definitely one of the more challenging entries in the series.
Just the idea of like having forcing you to play as a certain character, and there's like 20 characters or so in this game, and like some of them are funky. They are some funky ass characters, and
I think they knew it.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what makes it fun. And that heightens the challenge, but it also heightens like that inner sense of like what makes WarioWare is like that franticness. It's just like, oh my god, I gotta complete this, and I don't even know how to control this this stupid character. And there's a lot of like extra stuff in this game. I would say this is a really cool, unique entry in the series. Probably around like Twisted Touched area. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like one of the all-time greats, but it's a solid WarioWare. I don't know. Where do you think it should go?
I think I would put it on par with Twisted, and like above Mega Microgames, or like maybe on the same level as those. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just like it's good. I like it, and I'm happy it exists. But I wouldn't say it's my go-to. It's my go-to WarioWare. But then it brings us to the follow-up, which I was never expecting this. I thought this was just the only WarioWare we were getting on Switch. But the fact we got a follow-up to Smooth Moves is pretty rad. We have Move It, and I've played about half of the single player of this game, which is embarrassing considering WarioWare single player is about 2 hours long. But I played the first hour, and I was like, I was getting late. I got tired. I was like, okay, I'll finish this later. I've played enough to feel like I have a pretty good grasp of this game. And I like this game quite a lot. I think it's a really cool follow-up to Smooth Moves. However, it very much, I think Smooth Moves still kind of might reign supreme just because it's like, it was the first of its kind, and it came out during a time when like we've never seen really anything like this. And also Move It feels like I feel like you're gonna get the most out of it if you've played Smooth Moves before. It feels like a genuine like, hey, let's take what Smooth Moves did and let's expand it. Now you're using 2 hands. And that does like change things a lot. That adds so much stuff to this. But it does make it a lot more complicated though, which is interesting. Right. But hey, what are you thinking about Move It?
As a Smooth Moves fan, this Move It is definitely everything I really wanted from like a Smooth Moves sequel. I mean, in Japan, it's called Super Smooth Moves. Basically, is what it's called in Japanese. So, and I do appreciate like, the motion controls are still good. They're not bad or anything. The Joy-Con are technically more advanced than Wii remotes, so good to see that they still work here. But yeah, it's definitely a more challenging like iteration on a Smooth Moves. And when I played it for the first time, a lot of these microgames I definitely had to like figure out more on what I was supposed to do, like based on the form I was given. Like, okay, you gotta do like the Baka move, but then the microgame actually has you, swing your arms back and forth to hike up a hill. And, the forms are weird, and they do use them creatively, but, like, it's definitely a more, like, obtuse learning curve compared to Smooth Moves, where it's more straightforward. You just hold the Wii remote and then, do stuff with it. As a Smooth Moves fan, I do like the expansion of the concept, but it's definitely for newcomers. I could see if this would give them I can see if this gave them a bit of trouble trying to figure out all these different forms and switch to them on time, especially with the higher speeds later on.
This game really did at least bring back a lot of like that joy I felt playing WarioWare Smooth Moves, which is very impressive. Now, I never thought I'd get that joy ever again. I never thought I'd have I'd have that experience. I thought I've become jaded and nothing else could happen, but this was awesome. It's really unfortunate that it came out during such a crowded time, being a November 2023 game right after like Mario Wonder and all these other games coming out for like Xbox and PlayStation, like, and especially like Mario RPG came out like a week or two later. Like, man, like there was just no room for WarioWare. But yeah, where would Move It go? Like in the grand scheme of things, I'm making sure I get the full rank written out here. I feel like this is like in the general like high range.
I would personally put it like, just below Smooth Moves. For the purposes of our tier list, I think it's also like fine to put it on the same tier as Touched, I would say.
It's really tricky because it's like, okay, genuinely, what is better, WarioWare Move It or WarioWare DIY? And it's really weird to think about that. I think it's below DIY, but it's just like it's like number 4 at that point. It's number 4 WarioWare. Right below DIY.
That's respectable.
Because DIY is just so good at what it does. It's not the greatest like WarioWare experience, even though it's like we said, it's more of like a spin-off kind of thing. but it's like a main spin-off, you know? Like it's a weird little guy. I think Move It is what I wanted out of like a WarioWare on Switch, and I'm happy we got Get It Together. Yeah. I think Get It Together is a more like unique idea, because like Move It's obviously just a follow-up to Smooth Moves, but I think it does that job really well. Right. And I feel like just the amount of WarioWare we've gotten. We got like this amazing best of compilation. Then we have this brand new unique spin on the series, and then we have a follow up to one of the best in the series.
Yeah,
I'm pretty happy with where things are at.
I think all we're missing is basically like a modern version of DIY. Just bring that back, and we're all set to go.
Because like honestly, the game creation tools we have right now with silly little game builder garage, I don't care. I want WarioWare DIY. I don't like how that game feels creepy to make things in because it's so silent. Feels like I'm making things in like, you know what? To be fair, it feels like I'm making things in a garage, an empty garage, and it's creepy. But genuinely, the rank is WarioWare Snapped at the very bottom, followed up by Paper Airplane Chase, Bird and Beans, WarioWare DIY Showcase, WarioWare Mega Party Games, Game and Wario, WarioWare Mega Microgames, WarioWare Get It Together, Twisted, Touched, Move It, DIY, Smooth Moves, and WarioWare Gold at the top. Do you think that's a fair assumption, or do you think anything needs to move around here?
I think that personally checks out so far. I would definitely, I think Move It. It's still fairly recent. Like it's a WarioWare game for WarioWare fans, I would say, like especially Smooth Moves fans, but. Definitely in terms of I would definitely say Smooth Moves does some things better than Move It. I would say I also miss the single player mini games. There aren't as much in Move It compared to Smooth Moves.
Yeah, I can definitely tell Move It is definitely kind of lacking on the from what I've seen. And again, you know, I've only played about half of the single player right now, but from what I've seen, it does seem a bit lacking in terms of like the extra kind of fun toys and modes that the other WarioWare games have. This one's more like oh, what it does is really good. Like it has like it nails, you know, motion control microgames. But you know, outside of that, I feel like, you know, something like a WarioWare Gold or Smooth Moves has like a lot of the extra mini games and modes and stuff that are a little more like, oh, you know, it has a bit of extra garnish on the plate. But Move It is still definitely up there. I've really enjoyed what I played. Yeah, I'm not really sure if a lot of WarioWare. What's your experience with the WarioWare fan base? Are they going to absolutely? Because I don't know. They might be genuinely some of the most terrifying individuals on the planet, and they may hate this list.
They're gonna hate that we didn't put Twisted on the very top. I have no idea, but like, I think it's fine. I think there's a generally okay list. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, I would probably like put DIY Showcase over Mega Party Games, just because Mega Party Games is really all reused content and is really only there for multiplayer. Personally, but like they're not all bad games. Like Personally, I would name like the tier with Game and Wario, Mega Party Games. They're just okay WarioWare games. They're not bad, but like they're just kind of there. They're fine. DIY Showcase would be like, kind of like on the top side of that. Yeah, on the top tier of that.
I do like the idea of people absolutely not having that WarioWare DIY Showcase being above Mega Party Games or anything anything like that.
I have no idea how the consensus is on that front.
Yeah, I do love the idea of the very angry, passionate WarioWare fan that needs WarioWare DIY Showcase to be above Mega Party Games.